friends. I'm your host, Erin Port, and welcome to the Simple Purposeful Living podcast. Life can be overwhelming and busy, so once a week, I invite you to join me, and together we will make simple tweaks to uncomplicate the hard parts of our life so we can spend more time doing what we love. Well, today's guest is a special one. I first met Jenny online and quickly bonded with her over the fact we were both adoptive moms of large families. This summer, I took my daughter to Bentonville for her 10th birthday trip, and when I tell you Jenny Mars is the real deal, she is. Oh, you did such a nice thing. And even though I never expected Jenny to take the time to meet up, she went out of her way to make my daughter's dreams come true. Gosh darn it, Jenny.
Well, that's when you're talking about your kids. You get, yeah, I get it. Oh.
Anyway, she is one of the most generous people I know, both in person and online. And I'm so grateful that she has agreed to come on to the Simple Purposeful Living podcast today to talk about her brand new book. And as a new author, I know how much work goes into this. So Jenny, welcome to the show. Sorry for all the tears.
Oh, I love it. No, she's good. Thank you for having me. I just love that your daughter likes our show and she's 10. That's so sweet. I love it. And I love that you do a 10th birthday trip. 10 is a big deal. So I love that.
It is a big deal. And both of my daughters want to grow up to be interior designers. So you are literally a great role model.
Oh, I love that. That's amazing. Aww.
Okay, so Jenny, you're celebrating a big birthday tomorrow for the book. Can you tell us a little bit about why you wrote Trust God, Love People, and what is the heart of the message you hope readers will take away?
Okay, yeah, tomorrow's the launch day. Sorry, 1 second. Do you need to get something? And then we can pause it. Okay, sorry. Dave's coming in. He's sneaking in, trying to get a snack and quietly. Okay, sorry. So tomorrow is the launch day. Yeah, this book it's just a bunch of stories from my life. Honestly, I started writing it I didn't know what it was going to be when I started. I had some essays that I didn't want it to be like this chronological memoir style. I wanted it to be little snippets and stories of just things that God has done in my life, his faithfulness. And I don't know if you had this experience when you were writing your book, but it started out as one thing and it changed several times along the way. And so now it's still the same. It's still stories from my life. I wanted it to be like just kind of digestible bites because I'm busy. I feel like everyone, I don't know, the right word is target audience, whoever I feel like is going to read this, my reader is probably very similar to me with kids and just busy life. And we don't have a ton of time to sit and read. So I wanted it to be manageable. So each story for the most part has sort of a biblical takeaway. Not everyone, it's not like all, each chapter is wrapped up in a bow, but I do just kind of share just the stories of God's faithfulness in my life, and then how he's shown up for me and how he's brought people into my life that I've been able to care for. I honestly when I started writing it, it was just about God's faithfulness, but my editor was the one who pointed out that the loving people part is a huge part of the book. And I was like, oh, you're right, it is. And now, I've been working on it now for 2 years. So now that it's about to launch, I feel like it's just so appropriate. Not that 2 years ago we didn't need the message, but I feel like now more than ever we do, of just loving people where they are and understanding that we may be different, but we all have some commonality, and that is that we're made in the image of God, the most important thing. And so just tangible ways to love people well, I think is one of the things I hope people get to take away from this book.
I love that. And our hearts are very united on that of just loving people right where they are. It's so true. Okay. In your book, you talk about looking back at the markers of God's faithfulness. Is there one story that will just gives you goosebumps when you think about how God showed up for you?
I mean, there's a lot of them. I think as you were talking about your daughter, I think each of the stories of my kids and the way that they came into our family, I know as adoptive moms, we both have seen God work. Because when you are in the adoption process, like God, it is such a spiritual battle. And so I think that each of my kids, I always say they each have a miracle story, but I think I would say I probably had more experience with spiritual warfare when we were in the process of trying to get Sylvie home during her adoption than I've ever experienced in my life. And had ever really, I mean, I grew up Methodist. We didn't talk about spiritual warfare. We were
Yeah.
like, just singing hymns and going to VBS. And so when we stepped into the adoption process, it was like we were stepping onto the battlefield. And I feel like that process, those years really prepared me for what God has done with my
Mm,
life since,
mm.
and with the show and being more public with our life and our family than we ever planned to be, for sure. He really prepared us in those years for what we're now doing, which, yeah, I wouldn't have been prepared in my just like my rooted in my faith the way I am if I hadn't gone through the things that we went through during our adoption.
Yes, we just did a class at church, Scott and I, and it asked for your hinge moments, like the 5 moments in your life. It was
Wow.
it was a process, but one of them was our adoption for that same reason. It just
Yeah.
felt like our faith was molded and refined and completely almost renovated. I always tell people it felt like I went through this complete, speaking to somebody who renovates homes, but I feel like my faith
Ah,
went through this renovation during the adoption process of what I thought God was and who he was to like really having an intimate relationship and having to depend on him. Because when you're trying to bring a child halfway around the world, when so many circumstances are out of your control, you're like, only God could do it. Honestly, some days I was like, there's no other way.
absolutely. Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Yep. That's
Okay,
the
so
hinge
for
moment. I like that.
for someone listening who feels like they are in a waiting season, we've all been there.
Mm.
How do you personally notice those markers in the middle of a hard season when the big picture isn't clear yet? What encouragement would you offer them?
So yeah, I mean the waiting seasons, I think, from what I've learned, and I felt this when we were really, I think the first time was when we were first trying to have kids and
Mm,
we walked through infertility for years. And it was the first time that it was really like, okay, I don't have control over
mm,
this
mm,
situation at all. Even though, usually I can work really hard and I'm definitely an achiever personality. And this is the first time that I'm like, oh, okay, I can't do this. God, I really actually have to rely on you.
mm,
But what I learned in those years, and then again was waiting on Sylvie to come home, was really that God is, I, it took a while to get to this point, but I got to the point where I was able to say, Lord, what are you wanting to teach me in this
mm,
season? Because I think that the waiting seasons are those teachable seasons of our lives. That is when God is doing something. When we're waiting for some sort of breakthrough, it is a chance for us to lean into Him and try to figure out what is He teaching me.
mm,
Because if we're able to do that, then when we enter into a season again, because there's always going to be those, you're not going to always have the mountaintop moments, but when you're back in a hard season or a hard place, you can look back and be
mm,
reminded of
mm,
what God did in your past. One thing that I talk about in the book, and I've talked about this a lot before, is that our family, we always, when we travel or like even just when we're on a walk and we had a really good day, we always look for heart rocks and we save those and we write the date on them and the place. And I put them throughout our house. We have them in bowls everywhere. But for me, obviously it's very biblical where the
mm,
Lord asked, to bring the stones and create an altar here. And these stones will be a place where your children will ask, why are these stones here? Right. So the rock to me, I've always been drawn to it, but we have these bowls of rocks all over our house. And I do really like to just have them sitting out and the kids like will pick them up and be like, oh, remember when we were here and we picked this rock up? And it gives us a chance to look back on the good things God has done. And sometimes it is, again, like last weekend, we went on a canoe ride and it was just this beautiful, really peaceful, joyful day. And we found rocks from that. And that in the midst of a really hard couple weeks of a lot of grief, those rocks were really special because I was like, this was actually a really good, joyful day in the midst of a really hard time. And so just tangible things like that. I mean, it's so simple, but it, I don't know, it gives me, I love it. I love to look at my rocks. I'm like, oh, those are markers of God's faithfulness. It's a little, just a little rock from the earth. So now, sometimes when you go to a foreign country and you pack the rocks in your carry-on, they do get taken away. So just so you know, if you're going to an island, for example, don't pack a bag full of rocks. We made that mistake this summer. Dave packed my rocks in his carry-on all in one bag. And I was like, no. And they got taken away. But I have pictures of them. It's okay.
Oh no, I that would be I would make that mistake
Be
too.
careful. Yeah, I know. I'm like, oh, I guess you're not supposed to take rocks. I shouldn't encourage that, but oh well, we do.
I think it's a great idea, and it's a tiny tweak. I mean, which I talk about all the time, like the simplest little thing. But like you said, so often in the rush of life, we're just forging ahead, always looking ahead. And I always tell people I was on the road one time. We live in a small town, and we always have to take the same small town road to get to the big town. And there's this beautiful farm. I never look at it. But one day Quincy was like, "Hey, Mom, look at the window. There's new baby cows, little calves." So I said, that is how so much of our life is. We're looking out the front window. We rarely look back or out the side. And I love how the rocks help you just to look back. And
Mhm.
and I think it's so
Yes.
true in on a hard season to be able to say, okay, God showed up in this way in the past. He's going to show up this
Mhm.
way in the future. And also, in the midst of a hard season, I think what you I heard you say is there can still be joy found if you look
Mhm.
for it. Because you said on that, like it's been a really hard season of grief for you guys, but that was such a sweet moment, such a good reminder.
Yeah. And the heart rocks specifically are really fun because you find them a lot. You don't realize how many heart rocks are out in the world. I feel like God just makes them just for me to find. But my kids love it. Like when we're out, like it just gives them something to not to do, like, but when you're on a hike and if they're getting distracted, I'm like, okay, gotta find a good rock. And then we have sort of a competition over it and just becomes this really fun thing that I feel like I hope they'll do with their kids, and it'll just always be, someday when I'm not here anymore and they see a heart rock on the ground, they'll smile, so it's just
Yes.
kind of a fun thing that our family does that I really love.
That's so good. So good. Everybody's gonna be looking for hot rocks after this episode. I
Yes.
love it.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So you obviously lead very full lives. You and Dave balance the demands of public life, and I know that's not always easy. There's a lot of unkind comments online, work, and you have a family of seven, five kids. How do you stay grounded?
Oh gosh, grounded. I don't know. That's an interesting because I thought you were going to say, how do you balance? Because everybody says, how do you balance? And I'm like, there's no balance. There is no balance. I think there's no such thing. It's a lie. I think for me, it's just a matter of, I mean, always having an eternity focus, like what really matters. I long time ago read somewhere, okay, whatever you're dealing with, will this matter in 5 minutes, five
Mm,
years, 15 years? And just to kind of have that perspective of what really matters and what really counts. And so our kids are number one. Our production company knows that. They've been amazing about if something is happening with the kids, like if, for example, last Tuesday, Luke had his first grade little field trip. And I was like, obviously, I'm going on the field trip, but we were filming. And the hard thing about when we're filming is our production crew all flies in. And so it's not like we can just be like, oh, I need the day off because
mm.
they're there, they're being paid, they have a job to do. We've got a production schedule, we have to turn everything in. But at the same time, I was like, I'm going to Luke's field trip. Sorry. So they were able to, and I told them ahead of time, and they were awesome and filmed some stuff with David in the barn where I went to the field trip and then it was fine. I left a little early, but I think it's just sort of like any working mom's life, really. I mean, our job is not glamorous. Yes, there's cameras there, but they're just like, I don't know, I consider them just my colleagues. Like we just go to work and there's Jerome and Jason and they've been with us this whole time. So it's not like there's definitely nothing glamorous about it at all. And so I think that that's really how, I mean, we don't really, our life is very normal. Like we go to work and sometimes there's cameras there, but then in the afternoon we have sports and all the normal things. It's just our job. It's
Mhm.
not like we live in Hollywood and we're going to like fancy things all the time. We're not at all. So I guess that's how, and then in terms of like online spaces, it's hard. And I think you can probably relate to just being an adopted mom. And obviously our family looks different. So people come on and just kind of dissect what that is. And um, I wish I would have done a better job in the early years of filming to make sure our production company really understood all of those dynamics, but I didn't because I just sort of was naive. And so now so our daughter Sylvie, you know, she's a kid with a traumatic past. Like she had, it's just that it is what it is. She's always going to be working through it. We're always working through it as a family. And she also really doesn't like being on camera. So that's just even, it doesn't even have anything to do with even her trauma or her adoption. It's just that, she doesn't want to be on camera. She's shy. And so we get a lot of the like, oh, she looks so unhappy. Oh, you must treat her differently because, she's Black. And I'm like, no, it has nothing to do with that. She just doesn't want to be on the camera. And like, she's very shy and uncomfortable in that situation. And so we've had where we don't have Sylvie on the show because she doesn't want to be. We never make our kids be on camera if they don't want to be. And so, she doesn't ever really say, like, oh, I want to go out while you guys are filming. She never does. So we've never pushed her to do that. And then people are like, oh, where is she? Why don't you ever put her? It's like you never ask that about any of my other kids. Just because she kind of, she stands out. I get it, but that doesn't mean that you have any right to make any assumptions on my parenting or my child based on a 2-minute clip on a show. So that I think is the hardest part of the show. And in terms of how to handle it, I block and delete all the time. And I think I just have to keep giving it over to the Lord because he knows. And like I said, when we first started our adoption is when we really stepped onto a spiritual battlefield, and we've never really left that. Obviously, we're living in a spiritual battlefield. That's what the world is. But I think God opened my eyes to what Paul talks about. Like, this is a supernatural world. We're not fighting against flesh and blood. And because he opened my eyes to that, I can see better with spiritual sight. But I still get very, very frustrated and upset. And I get like I get so mad when I read stuff. And my hardest thing is trying to prepare my kids for the world, because at some point, my oldest are 15 and 13, they're going to see this stuff. And they probably already have, to be honest. Like, their friends probably Google them. They know how to do all that. And that is the hard thing. That is what's really hard, is I can't protect them from these things that people say online. And that I think is where again, I just have to constantly pray and ask God for protection for them, and ask him for protection for my heart as well. Because I think for me, that is absolutely the hardest thing about our job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, you can say all you want about me. But
Yes.
the minute
Yes.
you say something about my child, the mama bear comes out in me. We are, it just makes me so angry. And I think
Yeah.
until you've walked a mile in someone's shoes as an adoptive mom, the
Yeah.
amount of things we think about and pray about and deal with, I just don't think people understand
No.
until
They do.
you've been in those shoes and you can say, like, the trauma and
Mm-hmm.
the pain and the heartache and the things, it's just hard to explain unless somebody's been through it with you. And then for somebody to attack you, it just
Yeah.
feels you're already your
Yeah.
harshest critic, I think. Would you agree? And then for somebody to say
Yes.
something, you're like, I've already, it
Yeah.
almost adds evidence to what you've already felt or something, I guess.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think that's always the way the enemy comes after me. Because, I mean, always, as an adoptive mom, you're always working on attachment and connection,
Mm.
and you're evaluating everything from a different lens than you do your bio kids, because there's so many other layers there that are, yeah, there's just layers, and and so everything is being processed, and then when somebody calls it out, you're like, first of all, you don't even understand, so you have no right to speak into this,
Yes.
but also, like, and so yeah, it is really a challenge, absolutely. And I
Yeah.
think one of the reasons we wanted to do the show was to be able to talk about adoption and the beauty of adoption, and also be real about it, that it's not like, rainbows and unicorns, and your child comes home and it's beautiful and you tie a bow and you take pretty pictures all the time. Like, it is hard, and yet it is so worth it. And I mean, that obviously there's not even, that's not really the word, I guess, worth it. I don't even know what the right word is, but it like, I don't even think of Sylvia as my adopted daughter. I think of her as my daughter, right? So like, adoption is part of our story, but it's not our whole story. But it is important to talk about and to be real about, because I think if you're going into an adoption process, you don't want to go into it for the wrong reasons, for sure, because you have to truly be called to it, because it is a refining process beyond anything I've ever experienced.
Amen,
Yeah.
sister. Amen. Yes. Oh, yep. You took the words right out of my mouth. I think the thing that I was probably the most naive about is it is a lifelong spiritual battle that you will. I didn't anticipate that, and you hit the nail on the head with that. And I think again, for me too, something that's been always really important is to be as authentic as I can be while protecting my son, right? Like,
Yes.
but I think that was hard for me because when he first came home, it was hard. Um, and
Yeah.
so much of what you read about online is like, it's great, tie it up with a bow. And I'm like, it's just like anything
Mhm.
in life. We want to tie
Mhm.
everything up with a neat little bow. These things that we struggle with,
Yeah.
nothing can ever be tied up with a neat little bow. But it's hard to know until you've done
Yes. And I think we all, we did all the, I'm sure you did as well. You do all the research and you have to go to all the classes and you read all the books and you're like, well, but that's not going to be my
it.
story. Like,
Yeah. Yep.
we've got this. And yeah, that was at least us. We were like, yeah, no, those are that's terrible, but that's not going to happen to us. We'll leave that book over there. We got this. And then you find yourself in an actual trauma ward. Like, your home is just
Yep.
complete chaos. Like, oh, okay, what happened? Let me get the book back out. And then you
Yep.
try the things in the book and you're like, huh, didn't work.
Yes. Yes. Yep.
So it has been such a learning process. And yeah, but
But again,
also for our kids, other kids too. Like, it makes them have a different perspective
yep.
on the world. And I think a different perspective on how to love people well, because you never know what someone's dealing with. Like, someone may look, quote unquote, perfectly normal and perfectly happy, and you have no idea what's happening inside their heart, or the things that they're carrying from their past. And so I think my kids have learned, like, a lot about that, a lot about how to love people despite what they look like, what they act like, what they're doing, and that they've had to walk through it and learn in real time. And I think it's made them better humans because of it.
Yeah, it's made me a better human too. I always tell people, I always envision everybody's walking around with invisible baggage that we know nothing about. The person that you see
Yeah.
at the grocery store, the people, the prickly person at the gas station, chances are they probably have some invisible like baggage, and we probably would be prickly too if we knew and
Yeah.
carried that baggage, right? And it just helps me approach the world with way more empathy because I, in many ways, been to HE double hockey sticks and back. And I
Yeah.
just think, you know
Yeah.
what? It has paid when people were kind to us, it made all the difference in helping us to keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So good. Okay. Well, back to trust God and love
I
people.
know we got
Your new book. Oh, this is great. It's such a simple but profound phrase. And I think kind of like what we were talking about, like loving people, but how can we start practicing that in our everyday life? If for the ones that aren't adoptive moms, um, even in those small, ordinary moments, how can we trust God and love people well?
I mean, to me, I think it's those tangible things. I think one of them, Dave and I actually were just talking about this. We lost Dave's mom 2 weeks ago now. It's been almost, well, 2.5 weeks. And just the way people have shown up for us has been so impactful. Like just like the owner of our production company flew in and our producer flew in for the funeral, and they didn't have to do that, and they did, and they came up and they gave us a hug, and then they left right after because they didn't want to, it was family time. But like just the fact that they showed up and they were there, or a friend that dropped off dinner, and when we were sitting with Dave's mom in her final days, we had a friend that came and just brought all this food and snacks and like healthy stuff to snack on because nobody was preparing meals. We were sitting in a room with, his mom, and those tangible things. I mean, I always think feeding people always is like a very simple, tangible way to do that and it's funny because our nonprofit work, the way it started was we started an organization called Feed Their Tummies because food is so, I mean, it's vital. Like Jesus showed up on the beach and fed his friends, that first morning with fish. And it's literally how we need food to survive, but it's also nourishment and it's a way to love well. You know, I don't know. I think of like our neighbors, Bob and Jill, who we love so dearly, and we also lost both of them recently. And they were so good about just saying, "Hey, we're going to go." We had this pizza tradition with them where we went to this one pizza place and nearby, and they would just call us and be like, "Hey, I know you guys are busy. We're taking you to pizza tonight because we know you guys have been filming and we've watched you, the chaos, and we're going to pizza." And that we would go, and they would always bring a roll of quarters for each of the kids because they had like, like the little games in the pizza place where they could just go play the little games. And like, they did not have to do that. You know what I mean? And it's not about the money, and it's not about the pizza. It's about the fact that they saw how busy we were, and they just said, "Let's go. We're going to just go do this and have a fun night together." It's just that act of showing up. And I think, again, like if you see someone, and I remember, I'm sure you do, when you had a newborn or when Sylvie first came home, you bring a new mom meals and you do it because you want to love them. And like, I think meals really do have a way of caring for people really well. But also, just like you said, like you don't know who you're interacting with on any given day. So really just having just a spirit of compassion when you're out, because everybody's dealing with invisible things. And I think just really knowing that if you smile at someone or you say something kind, and you don't have to be fake and you don't have to be cheery and you don't have to be pretend whatever, but you can just look. If you see someone, look at them and see them. We actually were just coming home on Saturday night. Dave and we had to go do a home show in Texas, and we were flying home, and there was this girl sitting by herself just sobbing, like sobbing in the airport. And Dave and we walked by, and I was like, did you see her? Like, what?" And we're like, and both of us just said we should turn around, we should go check on her. And it was so awkward because she was like, "Who are you and what are you doing?" But also I just said, "Hey, I just want to make sure you're okay." And I just kind of patted her on her back, and she was young, she was a teenager, and obviously thought I was weird, but also I want to believe that she also is going to remember that, oh, somebody saw that I was hurting and took a minute in there. I mean, it took me 5 seconds, and yes, it was awkward, but I also wanted her to know that she was sitting there all alone and people were just walking right by her. And so I think it's just those really small things that just you don't even know. It may not, she may just have thought I was weird at the end, but maybe not. Maybe she thought, "Oh wow, somebody sees me in my pain." And you just never know. And, you have to kind of put yourself out there, and it can be awkward. I mean, it's like anything in life, like friendship, all of it. You have to put yourself out there. You're not going to get anything in return without giving anything. Um, you just aren't. If you're going to keep yourself closed off, then you're going to stay closed off and lonely. But if you are going to be the one to initiate and drop off a meal, it's going to bless that person, but it's also going to bless you. Or if you're going to stop and check on someone who's crying and offer a hug, I mean, that's all it is. It's just kind of having a heart of compassion for people and knowing that everyone is dealing with something. And again, it's not a fakeness. It's not a fake, this weird optimism. It's just that we can have hope in Jesus, and we can spread that in really tangible ways and make people feel seen and known. Because I think that's what he did really well, or what he does still really well, is he makes sure we know that we're seen. So yeah,
And I think at
I
the
kind of
core,
just rambled. Sorry.
no, I think at the core of who we are, right? We all want to be seen, known,
Mhm.
and loved. And I think in our culture today, we're so fast paced and we're moving so quickly. I think one of the things I learned, not to go back to the adoption thing, but we felt so alone in that process. Kind of just, you don't have a belly to protrude for people to ask you, how are things going? It can be a very lonely experience. And I think in that season, I realized those text messages, even of like, hey, I just wanted to check in, or hey, you came to mind. When your mind
Yeah.
brings up a friend, even just in that moment, and it takes practice, but you get better at it. Like, Jenny comes to mind. I'm going to text her and I'm just going to say, hey, I was thinking about you
Yeah.
today. Wanted you to know. And 9 times out of 10, the person is like, I needed that today. And thank you. And then it's always just like a quick exchange. It doesn't have to end up into anything else. And then the other thing that somebody told
Yeah.
me a long time ago was to call every person by name as humanly possible. So if somebody has their name tag on, and it can be awkward because sometimes the young cashier at Ace Hardware will be like, how do you know my name? But the guy that taught me this said, he goes, it just reminds me it is a human person with a soul that's taking care of me today. It is not, they're not here to
Yeah.
serve me alone, that this person, and I just think it's such a way to slow my mind down, look at that name tag and call them by name. So those some simple little
Yeah.
things.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
I think,
So good.
the more that we can do that, I know it sounds so small, but the more that we can
Yeah.
notice other people and just love well. Sometimes the
Mhm.
world problems of the world feel so big, but I'm like, you know what? I can do my part, and these are the little ways I can. And I do think it makes a ripple effect larger than we'll ever know this side of heaven.
I agree. I think that is, and I do talk about that in my book, is I really do feel like people, I included, we get paralyzed by all of the problems. And obviously we're onslaughted with them all the time. We have our phone, we're always seeing more than I think we were meant to see, right? And so we feel like there's too many problems. It's too big. I'm too small. I can't do anything. I can't make a difference. If I try to make a difference with this one thing, people are going to criticize that I'm not doing this other thing. And why didn't I stand up for this, but I stood up for this? And you end up spiraling and talking yourself out of doing anything at all. And it doesn't have to be so complicated. It has to just be noticing and showing up and being there for your people. And then if God puts something on your heart, doing it. So I think um, it again, bringing it back to our adoption, like I cannot tell you how many times we get, I'm sure you do too. Oh, why didn't you adopt from the US? We have a lot of kids here. And I have no way to answer that other than Sylvia is my daughter, and the Lord
Mm.
called us to be her parents. I don't know why or how we ended up adopting from the Congo. I can tell you, and you can, I mean, I talk about the story in my book, but like it was not our choice. We did not go saying we actually didn't even, we weren't even planning to adopt from the Congo. And that, like, just that attitude of, but why not this? Why, it's like, how
Mm.
about how about we just focus on the fact that there's one less child who was sold into human trafficking in a country where girls, under the age of 5 have pretty much no chance to make it, when they're orphans and they're living on the streets. So how about we just not say, well, what about this? Like, she's just my daughter. I don't know what to tell you. And we listened to God and we followed him where he led. And I think we can all just do that more. And I think, like you said, like, as you were talking about the text message thing, it reminded me of just I don't do it often enough, and you reminded me to do this more. But in the morning, just asking God, like, who help me to see who you need me to show up for, who I need to reach out to, or just show me where I need to, be your hands and feet today. And when you ask him that, he will show you. He really will. And he'll bring a friend to mind, or you'll be, walking down the airport and you'll see someone who needs a hug. I mean, he really will show you how to love people and who needs that in the day. But I think it's just a matter of being open to it.
Mm,
So yeah, and not being so critical, and just starting small, and not feeling like you have to save the world, because nobody's going to save the world. That's not our job.
mhm.
Yeah.
One person's job, and it's already been done.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Yes.
Oh, so good. Okay. If listeners take one tiny tweak away from reading your book, what would you want it to be?
I would say the art of or the act of remembering, like we talked about. I think remembering is really important. It's something I've always thought was important, but I've learned more and more how important it is, so that when you're walking through something really hard, you can look back on God's faithfulness in the past and stand firm in that foundation, on that foundation. Um, and yeah, just making it an act of remembering, like consciously saying, like, okay, I'm gonna whatever that looks like, whether you write on a rock, or you journal, or you just take a moment and sit outside in the sunshine and think about the last week. And yeah, I'm just really consciously making a point of remembering how God has been faithful to you. And that can look like gratitude as well, I guess, also. But yeah, just really recognizing where his hand has worked and holding on to that, because I think that's how you get through life with hope.
Mhm. Yeah. I think so often we're moving at such a fast pace that it is so
Mhm.
good to look back and just remember even the
Yes.
simple practice. I just did this the other day. I do it once a month. I go back through my camera roll for the last 30 days.
Yes.
We have such a short memory. It's crazy to me what
Yes.
can be done in 30 days
Yes.
and you forget, right?
Yeah. I know. Well, you think about when we were growing up, we didn't have that. Like, we had like our cameras, we'd have to go get them developed, and we didn't have like a daily, because for our show, a lot of times we'll tell a story of, like, oh, when I was a kid, I did this, and they'll be like, oh, can you send in a photo? And I'm like, well, no, my mom didn't take pictures of random things. Like,
Yeah.
we had 24 pictures in the roll, and like you
Yeah.
had to take special photos. So I don't have just random photos, but I think what we have, this technology, which we're so fortunate to have, to be able to look back and remember. I do that at the end of the year. I always go through each month, like right either the day before the new year or on the new year, and just kind of write down each month something, all the things I was grateful for during that time. And then I do the same thing with the kids, and I use my phone and my photos to help remember things. And the same, I'm like, oh, I totally forgot we did that. And yeah, it is amazing to see all the things that happen. And yes, we're moving so fast, we often don't have a minute to stop and acknowledge how great whatever it was, because you're already moving to the next thing.
Exactly. Such a good reminder. And a great way to remember is reading your book. So I will put the link to your show notes. It comes out October 7th. So when this airs, it will be out into the world. You can grab it at all the places. You will be so blessed by Jenny's book. Okay, I have three rapid fire questions before we wrap this show up. Are
Okay.
you ready?
Okay.
All
Okay.
right.
Yeah, I
What?
guess that makes me
They're easy, I promise.
fire. I'm like, okay.
I know it's been
Okay.
a difficult season of so much grief for your family, but what has been a tiny joy you've been clinging to lately?
Oh, you know what? We actually just booked. It's a big joy. We just booked a fun trip for New Year's.
Oh,
And I like to be able to open we fly Delta usually. We always try to stick with one airline because we like to accumulate miles. But I like to be able to open my app and see a countdown to a fun trip. A lot of times I have work trips, but I like to have it says like, I think it's 83 days until check-in, and it makes me very happy.
That. That's
So
so fun.
yeah,
My dad would approve. We are not loyal to any one airline because we live in the middle of nowhere. My dad's a big
yes,
Delta guy himself, so he'd be happy to hear that
yes,
you're loyal.
yes, yes. Well,
Okay.
we have the miles. It's all about the miles.
Yeah, I get you. Okay, number two. What's something surprising about filming a TV show people might not know?
Oh gosh, so many. How it's not glamorous, number one. And yeah, I think I think one weird thing is I have to change outfits a lot during the day because we're typically going to visit probably usually about three houses, sometimes four. And when we're at each house, I have to change like three times so we can get three different scenes at that house. But it is still very authentic because then we're actually doing the work, but we're usually doing the work. The cameras are there one week and then the cameras are gone the next week. And the next week is when we're actually getting all the work done. So yeah,
My God.
it's weird.
Do you
Yeah.
have
So I usually have, sorry, go ahead.
do you have sticky notes so you remember what outfit you wore at each house?
The production, there's someone who like keeps track of it. They take a picture each time. Yeah. Because then we have to sometimes go back and I have to find that outfit again and pick stuff up. And a lot of times I clean my closet out a lot. So a lot of times I give away clothes and then I'm like, oops, I don't have that shirt. So oh well.
That's
That's
crazy.
first
Do you
world
have,
problems.
do you have a little closet in your car then? Like a little closet just in the back seat then?
When we're traveling, yes, and so does our production company. Or the van has like a bunch of just t-shirts. So if you watch an episode, you'll see a lot of times I have the same jeans and shoes on for a lot, but I have different shirts. That's why.
Oh, I love that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. What's a tiny tweak? You know, I love them. Tiny tweaks, little shifts that make life easier. What's a tiny tweak you've made recently that's made life either 100 times easier or lighter?
I I mean, I've done this for a long time, but it's really important. I like to have a like a handwritten calendar, not just my phone. And so we have a big calendar right when you walk in that has everybody's stuff on it. And I also use my phone for other like detailed stuff, but that's kind of if it's not on that calendar, it doesn't happen. So everybody has to make sure their things are on the calendar and check it. But it has taken a very long time because Dave is terrible about calendar and schedule and planning. But now he sort of kind of uses the big calendar. And that is huge because when he checks the calendar and he knows we have something going on, it's amazing because
Yep.
he used to not. He used to just be like, fly by the seat of his pants. And now I'm like, no, we really have too much going on. You have to have it on the calendar. So yeah, the handwritten calendar that everybody can see, it's not color coded or complicated. It's totally just super simple. But I like it. I like a big one, and that's it. Yeah.
I love it. I always say it keeps everyone on the same page, literally.
Yes. Literally. Yes. Absolutely. I don't like the shared calendar. I've tried it all, but I like just the handwritten.
And that's the thing, you got to find what works for your family. But once you find
Yes.
it, you're like, I'm going to do this every day for the rest of our life because it helps simplify my life so much.
Absolutely. And I check on Sundays is usually when I sit down and kind of make sure the week I plan ahead. Like if we know something's coming up, it's on the calendar, but we really do like a week at a time, sort of survive one week at a time with all the kids stuff,
That's it,
you know.
right. Your kids are my kids' age, man. They have a lot going on. I feel like I'm just, the supporting actor in their main character world.
Yes. And their Uber driver. Yes, exactly.
Yes, exactly. Kid Uber. All right, Jenny, I
Yes.
will put the book in the show notes, but tell everyone where they can find you online and all the things. Of course, and I think are you in production for, what season are you guys on now?
Yeah, we're in season 7. We're in
Okay.
production now. It should air, we think, in December, but it's not final. We don't know the date yet, but I will share it whenever I know it. And my Instagram is Jenny Mars. That's probably the easiest way. And jennymars.com is my website, but I'm pretty much only active on Instagram for the most part. I can't keep up with all the others.
It's a
It's
lot.
too much.
It's too
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
Jenny, thank you for being so generous with your time. I know you're in the middle of filming today. Your book is launching. You have 5 kids. I really appreciate your insights. This was so valuable. I know it's going to encourage my listener. And I would say, I think the tiny tweak this week is if somebody comes to mind, take them a meal, send them a text message, and let them know that you care because I think the world is a better place when we love people well.
Thank you. I love that. Thanks for having me.
If you liked this episode, it would mean so much if you'd share it with a friend or leave a quick rating and review so others can find our show. Until next time, you can find me at Simple Purposeful Living on Instagram and Facebook.